Well, we're really excited to be here. To start, I was actually going to ask that if each one of you can introduce yourself, your role at LinkedIn, the length of time you've been at LinkedIn, and of course, in true LinkedIn fashion, as everyone here knows, something that's not on your LinkedIn profile. I really hope you guys have figured something out in the time you've been here, but let's see.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Lee Walmer. I lead business development for the products and services marketplace, our sales and marketing businesses. Been here 11 years, and in that time, I realized there's a lot of stuff on my profile, and so I was trying to figure out what to talk about. But my wife and I celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary recently.
Wow! Congratulations, Big Ten.
Thank you.
Paper year? What's the gift that's supposed to be a 10?
I'm getting there. I'm getting
sorry.
there. So the knot on my profile is actually we were looking at the pictures from the wedding, which my wife is Indian. She grew up in Delhi. We actually got married in Delhi, and in an Indian wedding ceremony, there's something called a barat, where the groom enters the wedding with a band. And I actually came in on an elephant. And so I was looking at the pictures and I'm like, did that really happen? I really rode into my wedding on an elephant? And it's just if I would recommend it. If anyone has the opportunity to ride into anything on an elephant, I suggest you take it. But I'm not sure I've done anything quite that cool since. So that's why I figured I'd pick that.
We'll work on an elephant for next year. See what the budget allows.
Thank you.
And as someone who is Indian, I also had a barat. One of the new things is to do Lamborghinis, so maybe that's next time.
Yeah, I asked my father-in-law about that. It was a hard no. He wouldn't spring for the Lamborghini.
Okay, fair enough. Penry?
Yeah, hey everybody, Penry Price. I lead our marketing solutions business globally at LinkedIn. I've been here or at LinkedIn about 10 and a half years, so shy of Lee's amazing 11 years. What's not on my LinkedIn profile, and I sort of was thinking about this earlier. I have answered this question many times, but my second favorite job is actually not on my profile, which is sort of strange because I think all jobs would be there, and I guess our favorite job should always be the job you're in. So I will say this is my second favorite job. I was the UPS man on the island of Nantucket during college. And we can have lots of, maybe later we can share some of the stories. It was a fantastic experience.
Drive the truck?
No, I couldn't. I was not allowed to drive the truck.
Okay.
I was the guy hanging on the back, and they would give me a little garden cart that I would have to wheel around sort of downtown Nantucket delivering packages.
Okay. Well, I hope they got them on time.
Always.
Great. All right, I'm Valerie. I don't know how you top these, but...
I'm going to do my best. I'm Valerie Beauchamp. I have the privilege of leading two teams in our marketing solutions business at LinkedIn. The first is the agency development team, who's responsible for our business partnerships with advertising and media agencies. And the second is a small but mighty team focused on marketer education. How do we help marketers who are investing on the platform be set up for more success? I am a relative newbie on this stage. I've just crossed my 2.5-year mark at LinkedIn. Something not on my profile is I am an oldest child, an Aries, and a redhead. So for any of you who might be familiar with birth order or astrology or genetics and the mutation that gives red hair and the other predispositions it presents, all of the characteristics and personality traits are common across those three things, and I have every single one of them.
Truth.
Yes. As someone who's known you for those 2.5 years, I can say, as the youngest child, I can definitely tell you're the oldest child.
I'll
and
take
for
it
those
as a
who haven't
compliment.
seen, she has an amazing presentation on being a redhead, and I highly recommend you try to ask her about that when you can talk to her later. So thank you all for being here today. It's really exciting to have all of you on the panel to be able to understand how we think about the marketing partner ecosystem and the ecosystem as a whole. Just as a reminder, we asked during the registration process for all of you, we asked you if you had any key questions you wanted to ask of us as we're here. And so luckily we were able to compile some great questions, and I have the pleasure of not having to answer, but just asking the hard-hitting questions. So I wish you all the best of luck as I start. So Lee, I actually want to start with you, right? You mentioned a couple new things that were happening, and so it's a really exciting time in the LinkedIn partner business, right? And you mentioned taking over the full products and services marketplace partnership team. You led the talent marketplace team for many, many years. We're super excited, first off, to be working with you, bringing the experience that you have and understanding how to build out the ecosystem. But we really wanted to get a little bit more insight into a little more about what's going on with the updates that happen to the channel team and the BD team and bringing together the teams and frankly, why we made them.
Yeah, thanks, Tusar. A couple of months ago, we took stock of how we were serving our partners and driving our partner strategy. And there were two opportunities that we saw to become more unified. So one, across LinkedIn, I think many of you are aware that we're unifying our marketing and sales business. Basically, within the B2B space, obviously that's incredibly important given that a buyer journey kind of runs through that whole gamut of marketing and sales. So as an organization, we're unifying those efforts. We thought that it made sense to make the partner team mirror that. And then within the LMS business, the ads business, historically, we've served partners kind of in two different teams. So one that was more focused on go-to-market, one that was focused on R&D. And as our business has evolved and we're taking on new initiatives, Penry and I talked about the fact that it probably made more sense to have one unified organization that could work with partners, think about how we create the most value holistically, and that's why we brought the two organizations together. And so in terms of how you'll experience that, I think in the near term, we're hoping that it manifests in a more unified approach and just making sure that we're as coordinated as can be. And then longer term, I think it's super important in terms of, we're trying to do incredibly ambitious things with you all and build B2B specific products and solutions. And it's going to be so important that we have a tight collaboration between marketing and sales in order to do that. And I think this organization will help with that. So we're super excited about that.
Yep. And speaking from the marketing side, very excited to be working closely across the teams and with all of our partners to see how we can grow this ecosystem even more. So, Penry, you mentioned you've been at LinkedIn for 10 and a half years, so almost as long as Lee's been married. And so would love to understand in the past 10 years how you've seen this grow, this B2B-centric ecosystem that exists, right? That we've really grown with all of our partners here. How have you seen solutions evolve in the B2B world? How have you seen the evolution of the ecosystem over the past decade?
Yeah, I also have never been on an elephant, so regardless of time, like now I want to go on an elephant at some point. Let's say that if we take a zoom out for a second, we maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we really planted a flag to say we want to go after B2B in a smarter way. We want to commit to the ecosystem around B2B. We all know that B2B buying is different than B2C buying. The tools we need, the way we measure, the way we think about attribution. To Lee's point, there's a clear funnel that is very defined in B2B. There's practices around, everything from some kind of engagement or awareness building all the way through to some lead in some CRM somewhere that needs to be captured and understood, and then sort of funneled back into the sort of front process again. It's about a $70 billion business in terms of opportunity in the world to go after. So we said, look, if we can be better about this, we have the assets we think to do this. So it was around that time that we really decided we're going to try to do this. And so with all of you guys as partners, and Lee just said it, to be more prescriptive about solving sort of B2B marketer challenges, to make sure we think about things that we all know. It's very different. There's many decision makers. There's a buyer committee. It takes months sometimes to move through a funnel. These are all very different challenges a B2B marketer has. And so over these years, we've been putting our resources across the teams, whether it be go-to-market or R&D, to try to build out the tools and necessary technologies to actually solve some of these real challenges. It doesn't exist today. If we all look 6 years ago, 7, 8, 10 years ago, all of us as B2B marketers were actually using B2C tools, and many of us still are. We're measuring the way B2C measures, and then we're trying to sort of on the back end try to make some adjustments, or we're doing things around some attribution modeling that's different for, again, when we think about a many-month cycle of nurturing a prospect down something towards a sale or conversion. So all of you guys have been a big part of this. So we wanted to embrace the ecosystem here, make sure we're thinking about this as not a LinkedIn solution. This is a win for the B2B marketing community to have tools. Jim always talks about, he'll talk later probably, but B2B marketers have felt like a left-handed pitcher in a righty's world. Everything was not built. Nothing was built for them. And so that's sort of my real passion, has been sort of moving towards this, working with the teams to understand what that means, staying committed to really defining what sort of contemporary B2B marketing should be in a time where we all are excited about all sorts of advancing technologies, Gen AI and all sorts of things. This is a moment when we actually should make a lot of progress against this. So I think we've done a bunch. There is still a lot more to happen, and it's going to be an industry solution that's going to help these B2B marketers be much more successful.
Totally agree. And I think the idea of, we have this saying, everything's better with partners. And we found that our customers just tend to have better results when they work with our partners, and we learn more from each other. So the more we can help each other grow, the better it gets. So Valerie, given you oversee the agency development and marketer education teams, I would love to go a little deeper into the agency space in particular. And as we think about the importance of partnership, joint development, how do you foresee what's going on there, and what are you seeing in that space right now?
Yeah, think I'll start by touching on just a couple things that Penry said. Like, first and foremost, and hopefully all of you sitting in this room today feel this, like, our perspective on partnership is like really grounded in our deep commitment to ecosystems, right? The partner ecosystem, the agency ecosystem. And we recognize and sort of celebrate this idea of a rising tide strategy, right? So when agencies and partners and LinkedIn come together, like, all boats rise. And so those are two lenses that are true in the agency space and true in the partner space. And I think we're really fortunate to work against this philosophy, because it means, hopefully, if we're doing our job well, we're showing up the right way for our partners, but also for our agencies. And so we're guided by this idea that, like, our responsibility in that rising tide strategy is to equip our agencies and our partners with solutions that allow you all to do what you do best. For example, APIs. How do we think about providing things around fueling deeper insights, around measurements, around marketing campaign orchestration? And I think the thing for me that is true broadly, especially in the partner space as well as the agency space, is like that the real magic happens when we start developing together, because we're bringing together capabilities and perspective that allow us to solve opportunity for our shared clients and customers.
That's great and very, very exciting to hear. So without giving away too much around what's going to come up soon, around Gina talking about the product updates, and then Lindsay later is going to be talking about our roadmap, really want to talk about how we're thinking about product and product decisions, right? As our partners are hand in hand with us as we build new things, working together to both influence the things we build, but also after we build them, integrating to them and working through that. And so before we get into that part of it, I want to take one step back. And Penry, from your perspective and your organization's perspectives, what are you hearing from customers about product needs and wants and where the market's going?
Yeah, there's some consistent themes that I think have arisen over these last couple of years, and it's actually the same anywhere in the world. There's no real difference anymore about a company that's based in Singapore or in India or in Chicago. It's sort of, everybody is sort of working through the same, sort of opportunities, maybe challenges, but they're seeing this, again, this transformation around B2B marketing with a lot more tools and technologies and data to solve some of these challenges. So 3 things. First, and we talked about this a couple years ago at Cannes, for many of you that were there, the importance of creative, the importance of the brand story, actually building brand awareness. We know from a bunch of data that there's about 5% of people in market at any given time. So it is critical for B2B brands to be building awareness for the buyer groups that are going to make decisions over 6 months, a year, 2 years ahead. So the importance of, I think, creative and the understanding of building a brand is something that I think was relatively new, surprisingly, And much of it was because we didn't have the measurement, we didn't have the tools, again, to do this productively or as productively as a lot of the consumer companies. So building brand, thinking about creative was the first one. We're excited today. We are launching CTV, and so video, and all these things are becoming more important for us with the B2B lens on it. Secondly, I would say the importance and the recognition of buyer groups. Again, this was something we've all done because of the way we've been trained as marketers, which was we would build personas, we would think about demographics, psychographics, we'd use any kind of data we could triangulate to think about what audiences we'd like to target. What we know in B2B is actually there's a bunch of accounts I care about, and there's a buyer group that I really need to influence. So we are working hard to figure out, to reshape the way we think about targeting, to really think about really who we should be influencing and speaking to is the buyer group. And by the way, every person in the buyer group, different functions, it might be a finance function, it might be a marketing function, demand gen, brand, wherever it is, they actually all should get probably custom messages that solve their specific function need related to that decision. So a lot of work is coming, and a lot of people have talked to us, customers, about the need to help move towards a buyer group first sort of approach. And then lastly, for us, and it's more of a broad, and I know Lindsay will talk about this, a broader topic, but there's a lot of industry changes. Cookies going away, there's regulation that's certainly happening across the world today. The World Wide Web sort of feels more like individual webs that we all access and have different experiences in different countries. So what happens for all of us then as marketers, we're losing signal. We're losing sort of fidelity of actually understanding who is engaging with the content we are actually putting out there, whatever content that might be. And so the third area is everybody's realizing this. So they're asking a partner like LinkedIn, we need to work on measurement. We need to really redefine what measurement's going to be and attribution is going to be when we lose the signal that we've been used to, and we sort of see the reality of the fragmentation of the audiences across all sorts of devices, obviously, that continuing, but also, again, this idea of the signals and the models we've built are all now threatened to be as valid or as accurate as they've been. So measurement, buyer groups being the center of where we think about things, and then upstream, building brand around creative and video and the importance of that.
Yep, that's great. And from the buyer group perspective, I remember when I started just under 7 years ago, I think it was McKinsey that did a report that said the B2B buying group was about 4 to 5 people. It's now gone up over 10 people that are part of the decision-making process. And longer sales cycles, economic uncertainty make that even more the case. So things like that. And since you measured measurement, I'm literally looking at a wall that says measurement in front of me, so I can't not call that out right there and make sure we check that out after. Great. So Valerie, from your perspective and your team's perspectives, what trends are you really seeing in the market?
Well, I guess the good news is, thankfully, I'm not going to bring up any trends that we haven't already talked about. Otherwise, I'd be very out of alignment with the market. So I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to see this, but John Clark, who leads technology solutions for Transmission, the agency, penned this really great piece that he shared out on the platform last week. And the headline for the piece was, how do we get marketing recognized as an agent of growth? And if I had to think about the encompassing sort of largest trend that I think particularly I'm spending a lot of time here talking about with agencies, and I suspect you all are doing the same, it's that, right? And so what underpins that is everything from metrics, measurement methodologies, beginning to think about the fact that we are predominantly over-reliant in the B2B marketing space on sort of sales-centric metrics, that we're really challenged by sort of the short-term measurement approach and how you account for long-term impact of some of the marketing efforts there. So all of those things sort of underpin that, and I think you can put them under measurement, but ultimately the higher altitude thought is getting marketing recognized as an agent of growth. And all of those things, as Penry said, are exacerbated by signal loss and shifts in privacy. And so that would be the big headline that I think I spend most of my time talking with agencies and their clients about. And then, it kind of trickles down from there where B2B marketing needs are just generally like massively underserved. And that's where you get really jazzed about like this group of people coming together with LinkedIn, with our agencies, because we have the opportunity, we see that, and we have the opportunity to build capabilities that address those needs. And so that's where like you start to like see that there's just like so much that we can be bringing to the market together. And then you think a little bit about brand building and storytelling being sort of a maybe not strong muscle yet in the B2B space, which trickles into how we think about content, how we think about formats like video. And then ultimately, like the big one, I can't believe we haven't even talked about this yet. We're like 15 minutes into a panel. Like, let's talk about AI for a second.
What's that now?
And in particularly in the marketing context, right? The role of AI in both creativity and content creation, but also in marketing campaign orchestration. So those are sort of maybe like the four things. But I would say the big one is, marketing as an agent of growth.
Totally fair. Lee, anything to add on that front?
Yeah, I think they've hit most of it, but I'll maybe just add, represent something we hear from our partners, which is particularly on the measurement solutions, we need to find ways to make our solutions work across channel, and that there's many customers that's super important for. And so we hear you, and that's one of the things that we're so excited to work with everyone here to achieve.
Great. So I was talking a little bit about our product roadmap and things like that. So Lee, given you're part of the R&D organization, you work very closely with our product team and our engineering team as they build. Very curious on your take on how do we think about the role partners play in influencing our roadmap, and also how do they best help inform it, because they are talking to all of our mutual customers and more to understand the industry. So how can we all collectively work together to think about what the future holds?
Absolutely. I mean, let me start out by saying partners and you all play an absolutely critical role in every step that our customers go through in terms of managing their activity with LinkedIn ads. And we're at the point where 100% of the impressions we serve on the platform is in some way facilitated by a partner. I mean, so we've come a long way throughout our journey. So partners are incredibly critical to the roadmap. And I personally, I've been at most of my time at LinkedIn, I've worked on partnerships, and I'm personally just a huge proponent of the impact that partner feedback can make on our roadmap, because you all play such a unique position, one, in that you see cross-channel, to my prior point, and partners are just so embedded with our customers and provide sort of an objective view and a way of triangulating. In a way, partner feedback is kind of a superset of customer feedback. But, as in terms of specific areas, we hit measurement, we hit connected TV and branding. Those are areas that are top of mind for us on the roadmap. And in terms of process to make sure that we're collecting input and using it in a structured manner, one thing that comes to mind is within the partnerships org, we're rolling out a new joint business planning process, more structured, more formalized, more frequent touch points, to make sure that we're having those conversations in a structured way and it's not ad hoc. And so, so in any event, the other thing you can do is, speaking of ad hoc, just find me here. I love, it was awesome being at dinner last night, and just like there wasn't enough time to talk about all the interesting things that we could do together.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Okay, so the next one I'm going to ask, I think, to all of you, and so we'll go down. But I would start with so there's been a bunch of success stories that we've seen with LinkedIn plus partners working together to help our mutual customers achieve success. What would you take as one of the ones you've seen as the most impactful that really resonates with you? So why don't we start, Penry, with you? We'll go Valerie and come back to Lee.
There's a lot of hard to choose. I would say, and I've been traveling lately, so maybe quick ones. I was in Sydney, Australia, where we were with, and I'm not sure, I saw Christine yesterday, but G2, there she is. I was with her counterpart, Chris, and we had talked about how G2 and LinkedIn were working on sort of in-depth sort of account plans, like where should we be talking, who should we be talking to. So it felt like a joint responsibility that together we were going to figure out the right accounts to speak to in a very prescriptive way. That may work sometimes, it may not work other times, but in this case, it was very beneficial for both of us. And it took time. I mean, it was sitting together hours and hours to plan and figure out where we're going to target. Similarly, in Europe, I was in Munich, and they had just had a meeting with HubSpot. And a very similar, they did a dinner in Berlin, I think it was, with 20 customers, where similar was how do we together, HubSpot in this case, and LinkedIn, like work with you as 20 partners to figure out across some of these questions we're just talking about, some of the challenges we're facing, how do we sort of show up as a better together kind of story that I know Melissa touched on earlier. And again, that takes time. It's sort of effort to figure out, okay, which 20 customers we want to focus on. And then the last one was, and I was talking to them last night, Supermetrics. These guys, in Dublin, I was in, and we did a webinar about RAR, so the Revenue Attribution Report, which talking again about this idea of understanding value, understanding actually deeper measurement of impact is crucial for all of us. We are, I think, all tired of those somewhat sort of early upper funnel metrics or vanity metrics, some will say. Get me to like the revenue. Where is the deal happening? Give me this sort of sense of impact. And Supermetrics is an amazing partner. We did this webinar. I don't remember how many people were logged in, and it would spin around obviously and get shared. But together, sort of giving the information we had about sort of RAR, the actual usage, the adoption, the best practices, and then they being able to sort of talk from their perspective, again, cross-channel, the importance of these things, the importance of measuring deeper into the sort of the activity of really what's happening, was a huge success. And so again, takes time. We sat with them. What's important? What's going to help our collective story? What's going to help with our shared clients? So those are three. I mean, I
you
probably
cheated a little,
go,
but you took us around the world.
Oh,
bro.
sorry. I could have given you 6
That
if you wanted.
Just kidding. That's fair, and it was around the world, so that's great. Valerie,
So am I going to be in trouble if I get 2?
you can do it too.
So I think about these two in the context of content, because one of the things that we know that can often be a barrier for advertisers is not having sort of the expertise, capability, or the content to take advantage of a lot of the new formats and surfaces that we offer that are specifically built for B2B. So the first one that comes to mind is QuickFrame. Sort of an expert in CTV content creation, and the work that they've done to help TD Bank take advantage of LinkedIn CTV. And the second one is Wired, created custom thought leadership content for JP Morgan's Payments Unbound program, and it drove record engagement. And that ability to bring expertise and capability to bridge the gap so that more marketers can take advantage of the formats and services that we're offering that are specific to B2B is just like such a game changer.
To finish up, because we're running out of time, I would love, so one of the things we do at LinkedIn as we plan is we do this idea of if we were to think in a couple months or years down the line, what is the headline we're looking to achieve, and what is that success we're looking to achieve for that? So what I'm going to ask of each of you is, if you were to write the headline for a success story for LinkedIn and our partners, what would it say? So Lee, I'll start with you.
LinkedIn and its partners have transformed the way that marketers and sellers work.
That sounds too practiced.
I may have given him a hint.
It's
I'm
like
sorry.
totally
I'm sorry,
off the
Penry.
cuff.
Yeah. I was going to say something about like, you know, the modernization of B2B marketing has begun. Like something like like it has started. Like the ecosystem has started to modernize the way B2B marketing works.
Great.
I think I'm going to stick with sort of the marketing as an agent of growth, and maybe it's like something along the lines of like the world's top B2B companies realize marketing-led growth powered by LinkedIn and LinkedIn partner solutions.
Great. And let me see, how can we combine this? So
Just growth, too.
just growth. Just growth.
Massive
Growth is
success.
it. There we go. Okay. Catalyzation of growth to drive the ecosystem, and we have transformed the world together. So that's where we go. Thanks very much to all three of you. Really appreciate you spending the time with all of us to be here.